This is our second webinar that Lynn's Career Connections is hosting. We think the topic of resilience is perfect timing for these days that we're living through. It's about withstanding adversity, bouncing back, and growing despite life's twists and turns, which we're certainly all experiencing right at this very moment. So my name is Gary Carlin. I'm a professor at Lynn University. I focus on the area of advertising and public relations. And I'm a former vice president of marketing at Hasbro Toy Company. And my co-presenter is Stephanie Powers.
Hi, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here today. As Gary just mentioned, I'm delighted to be here for such a relevant topic, specifically in today's era. So thank you all. And just to give you a little bit of background on myself, I am the Assistant Dean of the College of Communication and Design here at Lynn University. And I also teach in both multimedia journalism as well as advertising and PR. And again, thank you for being here, and we are really looking forward to the topic today, and we think this is going to be great for our students as well as alum. It's so exciting just looking over at this attendee list and seeing so many familiar names. So thank you all for being here today, and most importantly, thank you all for our esteemed panelists. We really appreciate you being here. So with that, I'm going to let them really introduce themselves. I'm just going to briefly mention their names. So first and foremost, we have visionary John Duffy. So John, thank you so much for being here. We at Lynn are fortunate enough to have John also as an executive in resident in the College of Business. So thank you again for being here. We also have longtime friend and a visionary as well, Nicole Biscuiti. And Nicole has created she's the founder and the owner of the Chestee. And last but not least, we were supposed to have somebody from Bloomingdale's here today, but unfortunately, at the last moment, she had to go into another meeting. So we have here Mark Alfieri, who is the founder and CEO of Brandstar. So thank you all again for being here.
Nice picture, Mark.
Yeah.
That's it. I had hair back then.
Looking good.
So the format for today is that each of the panelists will briefly introduce themselves first. Then we have a series of kind of canned questions that we're going to pose and ask each of the panelists to chime in and say something about the topic. We also encourage the audience to type questions or make comments in the chat box in the right-hand corner, and we will be monitoring that as we go along. We want to make this as interactive and more of a discussion as possible. So, Mark, would you like to go first and introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm privileged to be here. I'm Mark Alfieri. I'm the founder and CEO of Brandstar. We are a purpose-driven company that is looking to make a positive impact on people's lives. We're a full-service production company, marketing agency. We produce national television shows that air on Lifetime television and then on local stations around the market. And I'm excited to talk to you guys about resilience.
Excellent.
Excellent. Thank you. Next up, Nicole, would you like to describe John? Would you like to describe?
On the slide. So, John, would you introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having me, everybody. I'm John Duffy, and as Gary said, I'm involved with Lynn as the entrepreneur in residence in the business school, and I also teach a class to senior students called Venture Scaling Excellence. I'm a longtime resident of Delray Beach and a longtime software entrepreneur. Most recently, I was the founder and CEO of a company based here in Boca called 3C Interactive, which we sold in August of last year. Mental toughness, resiliency, my favorite topics. My favorite two words, attitude and effort. I can't wait to talk to you guys today about this. I know we're scheduled for an hour, but I can probably talk about it for 10. So I'll do my best to try to contain myself. But thanks for having me.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
And Nicole.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nicole Biscuiti. I'm also a South Florida resident and a longtime friend of Miss Stephanie Powers. I graduated from Spanish River High School, went on to university. That was my dryer beeping as we're all working from home. That's right. Graduated from University of Central Florida in Orlando with a communications degree and international business focus. And I know Beth, who was supposed to be here. Thank you so much, Mark, for stepping in, because I used to work for Bloomingdale's in their public relations department. And while I worked for Bloomingdale's, I set my dreams free, chased after them, and created the Chestee. And the Chestee is an invention, the first of its kind, which is a sports bra with a built-in collarbone guard. So for all you fitness enthusiasts and weightlifters out there who have been lifting weights with the barbell crashing on your neck, bruise no more. We now have sports bras with guards in them. And I can't wait to talk to you about resilience. And I love that John mentioned effort, because one of my go-to phrases is effort is a choice.
Very good.
Excellent. Very good.
So we have our first question for the panelists, and we'd like you to each tell us about a resilient time in your career, one that you'd like to share with the audience. So who would like to go first? John. John, tell us about a time in your career that you felt particularly resilient.
You know, thanks, Gary. I thought about this for the past couple days, reflecting on my life and my career. And thankfully, I've never been in a position where I had a life and death moment, a police officer, military, things like that. And so I thought about sort of situations and periods of time that my resilience, my attitude, my effort, I think made a difference in the outcome of a difficult situation. And for me, as somebody in the software industry, my customers are generally the wireless telephone companies around the world. In 2013, my customers unilaterally made a decision across the globe which potentially threatened, the existence of our business. And every day, every afternoon, our entire team worked tirelessly to find a path through that. And it was, the reason I picked this out is because it was also a time where I was in a bit of a personal crisis. I had been diagnosed with cancer and had to have some difficult surgery. And I was really proud of the effort our entire team made and my role in it when it was over, because we were successful. We survived this crisis and we used it as an opportunity to grow. And so when I think about it, like I said, I think about it in terms of periods of time and periods of different situations where your mental toughness and your ability to be resilient is tested day after day after day as you're working through something, and not necessarily just a single instant. That's my experience, and that's how, when I reflect back, I like to think about how I've used my own mental toughness and ability to be resilient to try to be successful and to try to be happy.
Excellent.
So just challenging times, and not just one time, but the start of a sequence.
Yeah, like for example, right now, this is going to be months. That's going to challenge us all. How are we going to use it as an opportunity to make it the best thing that ever happened to us?
That's right. Agree with that.
Anybody else want to answer?
Yeah, so I'll for me, a time in my career where resiliency, it brings me back. I had about 15 minutes to figure this one out, right? I'm kidding, because I was put in at the last second. So John going to have a better answer than me on this. For me, it was in my career. It's actually why I sit here today as the CEO of Brandstar. I worked back at a television production company in the early 90s as a person who was in the sales department. And I met my wife to be there, and we were coming up on our wedding, and I had made a deal with my boss at the time that he would advance me some of my commissions in order to pay for the wedding, because we came from families that didn't have the ability to do that. And he agreed that he would lend me up to $10,000 off of commissions that I had owed, which were going to be, far greater than that. And I came to him 3 days before my wedding and said, I have great news. I only need to borrow $3,000 instead of 10. And he just decided to say no. I had a caterer that was saying, you know, you need to pay me by tomorrow or I will cancel you out. And so I didn't know what to do. And so I went, was very distraught about that because he went back on his word and went back in to his office. And I made a deal with him to say that I would take the gifts from my wedding, which would be at least $3,000 worth of gifts, and I would give him the money back within a day. So I basically needed a 3-day loan. Make a long story short, I winded up, having my wedding go on. I paid him back the very next day. Went on my honeymoon and was on a cruise ship, which is not advisable right now to do that. And on the cruise, I told my wife I'm quitting my job. I can't work for somebody like that, and I'm going to start my own company. And that was back in 1994. And I'm here today in the TV production business because somebody didn't want to live up to their word of lending me $3,000. So,
what a great story.
Well, that is a great answer in only 15 seconds. I'm impressed.
well, thank you. My wife helped me with that one because I had to do a phone a friend on that real quick. Give me a resilient story. It's like, what about we got married? Good.
I love that story, Mark. And I feel personally like life is really sport, and we're all athletes training to get through the sport of life as in the best condition, in the best athletic shape that we can be. And resiliency, therefore, is a muscle. And resiliency is something that you can build. It is something that you can grow, and it is a skill that you can not only hone in on, but also teach other people. And so one of my many, examples of when resiliency came to be a really important thing or a really important lesson in my career is right when I was starting Chestee. I was working, as I mentioned, I worked in the public relations department for Bloomingdale's as one of their executive leaders. And I really, really had a passion for doing this. And I had no idea how to do it, but I knew I needed to do it. And it was my dream work. So I saved all of the bonus money I ever made. I saved as much money as I could. And in my very inexperienced business brain, I thought I had enough money saved to last me 16 months. I left Bloomingdale's. They had a nice goodbye party for me. I'm still very close with all of my friends there, as I mentioned. And within 90 days, I ran out of that year and a half, cushion that I thought it was going to make me. So in 90 days, then I needed to find another job. They had already filled my old position at Bloomingdale's. So, so I couldn't go back there. So had to really start over. And I had to start over while I was building the business of Chestee. So I had to go take a job. I distinctly remember taking sales calls on my lunch break, Oh, what works for you, Samantha? I'm free between 12 and 1 on Tuesday. How about you? And I would take sales calls from my car from 12 to 1. I would then drive to different CrossFit gyms or any gym really that would let me in and showcase my product. And I would do that as many nights and on as many weekends as they would let me. And I did that for another 14 months. This time I was smarter, right? Because every time we make a mistake, we're either winning or we're learning. So, so I won in that I learned, and I didn't make that mistake again. But that is a lesson in resiliency that has proven very valuable to me and probably will continue playing an important role through the next phase of my career.
So would you say not giving up was a big part of that?
Yeah, I mean, that what wasn't even a question. I had this conversation with my friend who is also a business owner in South Florida. He owns a tech company that just got seed funding for, $30 million. And he asked me the question, do you feel, because he polled his followers on Instagram, you know, that like little option where you can just set up a poll. Everyone's doing it because we're all bored. So he set up a poll last night, and his poll basically asked the question, is money directly tied to your ability to be successful? And 80% of the people who answered his story said yes. I was one of the ones who said no. And the reason that I said no is because of your point, Gary. I said the pain of not chasing my dream was far worse than the pain of never knowing if I could have done it.
Right. Excellent.
So it didn't matter if I didn't have the money.
That's great. So we had a question from the audience, from Professor Barr, asking how employers measure resiliency when it comes to interviewing new candidates, which I think is quite interesting. Mark, I know your company had some very interesting hiring techniques. Could you share how you're dealing with the question of resiliency?
Sure. You know, for us, we've kind of flipped hiring on its head as far as what we used to look for and what we look for today. In the past, it'd be about a resume and it'd be about experience and looking at what somebody's done on a piece of paper. And we've changed up our way that we interview today. It's attitude and energy are our two main drivers, and skills are third on our list. And so we do some fun stuff. You know, from an attitude perspective, I really look to ask this actual question: is that tell me about a time in your career that you really struggled. Like, what happened to you that was not in your control, that somebody else did, or something happened in your life, and how did you deal with it, right? Because we really want to learn. We know that people in general know how to adapt, but are they willing to turn that gene on and make it work? And so it's behavioral interviewing questions, because anybody that says they haven't been through something difficult is not telling you the truth. And so for us, it's not adversity happening to you. It's how you handle it. And we call it here the victim mentality. And folks that are victims, things happen in our life that we don't have control of. But we have control about how we respond to it as opposed to react. And so we look for that in our interviewing process. And that's how we do it.
That's great.
Wonderful advice.
What about Nicole or John? Do you have anything you want to add to that in terms of how you hire?
Yes. Sorry, John, you were going to speak.
Ladies first.
Thank you so much. Similar to Mark, we do a behavioral assessment before the first conversation. So we do a version of DISC. I don't know if you guys have ever taken the assessment, but it measures your dominance, influence. What is the S? I forget. Obviously, I'm not an S. And so, similar to Mark, what we're looking for is, does this person fit into the culture that we are cultivating in our company? Number one, first and foremost, because if they don't, they won't be successful. Number two, are they teachable? Right now, it's very different in the hiring stage or in the hiring process than it was not even like 5 years ago, but literally 5 months ago. Now we are very much looking for problem solvers. The other thing that may be true of smaller businesses, like the size of my company versus, larger companies, is that we are looking for people who can effortlessly wear more than one hat. So yes, of course, maybe your title is going to be customer service, but there are a lot of other components to your job that are required in a small business that you have to be willing to do. You don't have to know how to do it. You absolutely have to be willing to put the effort in. And those are the things that we're looking for when we're hiring.
Excellent. Thank you. John?
I think they've provided some good context there. I don't have anything extra on that topic.
I think that's great for our students, and I love the part about willingness and also culture, because I think that's so significant wherever you're at, whether it be a large corporation or small. So thank you both for sharing that.
So we have one more question for Nicole from Connor. asking, after you made your first sale, you got your first yes on a product. Did that lead to more success in future meetings to showcase your product? Did you have more confidence, which snowballed into more success?
Connor, the answer is yes. And the old sales adage, which is every 10 no's leads to a yes, is absolutely correct. I'd probably add a multiplier closer, in my experience, to like every 40 no's was the yes. But every no that I got actually made me so excited, because not because it was a no, but because I knew I was so much closer. I was one step closer to the yes. And for entrepreneurs or people in business, I think that we all have like a little bit of a flame that never goes out, right? It's like at the end of a 10-day campfire or 10-hour campfire, you still see the embers burning. So with people that are in business, the embers are still always burning. So that yes literally was like igniting the flame all over again. All it took was a tiny one purchase. And let me tell you something, the product that I sold in year one, it wasn't cute. It was functional, but it wasn't good looking. And so for me to be able to sell that was a huge accomplishment. Obviously, every time you go into business, mentors will tell you what you think your product is, or what your business or service is today will absolutely not be what it will end up being in 5 years. That was true for me. And so every time I would get a yes, it completely energized me into going to the next step. But the thing is, you have to have that grit all the time. And so I just used it to kind of put more fuel into the fire, if you will. Did I answer your question?
Great answer. There's a book that I make every one of my team members read. It's called Go for No If Yes is the Destination. And you actually have to create a no quota, not a yes quota. So every time you get a yes, you got to start over. Because it practice you to not just tolerate no, but to love no, and recognize that no is great because it's a decision not to go in a direction, so you can go into a new direction. So I'm spot on with you on that, Nicole.
So we have one more question, and then we're going to move on to our canned questions from the audience, from Ethan Pond, asking, this is for Mark. He's asking if in his opinion, in your opinion, Mark, how will coronavirus impact business culture, especially given economic fallout since the stay-at-home orders have begun?
No, that's a great question. I think it actually even ties into the next question you have on your list. The fact is that the coronavirus has changed everything for everybody. I don't know of anybody who hasn't been affected by this in some way, shape, or form. Whether you're the restaurant down the street or whether you're, a business that already works online. Everybody's been impacted both personally and professionally. For us, I would tell you is that what it did for our company in many ways galvanized us together and created unity. I will tell you the biggest blessing for us from our organization is we had to move 200 plus people to remote work within one day. And our team just blew me away. I mean, they stepped up. They did it. They made the transition very quickly. And more importantly, I would say, is that they cared so much about the other workers that were around them and making sure that the company did okay. So it really, I saw the power of teamwork in action, because even people who maybe had some differences in the company put their differences aside to come together for that commonality of recognizing that this is bigger than any one of us and that we need to actually work together in order to navigate through it. So our business has certainly been impacted. We certainly got hurt from that, from a different perspective of people who can't fly to Florida to film a show or things along those lines. But the adaptation of our team, we're doing Skype interviews and just doing a bunch of different things because the team decided that they actually want to make this work and at all costs. It's been a sad time. We unfortunately had to lay off a few people, but we've actually developed a campaign for the people who did not get furloughed for the time being. We call it the Bring Them Back campaign. and we have a really strong effort as a team to try and do whatever it takes to figure out other ways to generate revenues and positions so these folks that have been temporarily affected from this can come back to work. I hope that answers your question, but I kind of put two in one there.
It's quite a silver lining story.
I just wrote silver lining because before this we were discussing silver linings, and that's definitely a silver lining. Absolutely.
Yeah, you see the best in people through adversity.
Yeah. Like even just
Yes.
meeting neighbors in a way that we haven't talked to our neighbors. You know, the things like that. The neighbors are coming together. People are coming together, and it brings out the best in us.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that you get connected more with your family, with your neighbors. To your point, is that you have to look at the things that are the silver linings from this. I believe as a country, we're going to come out of this even stronger than we have ever had, because we're really going to focus on the things that have made our country so great in the first place, and that is that we are a resilient country, and we all innovate, right? So we're all innovating. I know, John, I'm sure you guys are innovating, and we figure it out, right? We just got to figure it out. We're not going to let this bury us, right? That goes back to that dealing with adversity.
So it brings us to our next question, which we've sort of already, as you pointed out, Mark started to touch on, examples of resilience during COVID-19, and not just in your own companies, but just in businesses in general, organizations in general.
Even in the media, anything that you've seen.
John, you had some good ones during our rehearsal.
So just kind of lightening things up a little bit, you know, when something like this happens, and when I say something like this, a chaotic moment, right, where things are really changing, one of the things that I've tried to train myself to do, which is not my natural instinct, but is to look for sort of the opportunities in that chaos. You know, what's different, the way businesses are working, the way consumers are living, right? What do my entrepreneurial instincts tell me? And one of the first moments that caught my attention during this was my sister, who lives in New York City and moved out of the city to go to Vermont to avoid the coronavirus. She told me that in Vermont, they had just passed a law that allowed restaurants to sell takeout cocktails. And a light bulb went off inside my head. I said, if the government of a state can change that law, God knows what else might change. I need to start paying attention, because there's going to be some terrific opportunities. You may think it's a silly example, but for me, what it showed was that at a really chaotic, difficult time like this, boy, a lot of things we accept as rules and we accept as normal are up for grabs. Yeah. And boy, that for me, that's another way of saying there's opportunity out there. And so I was talking to a friend that I hadn't spoken to for a while this morning, and they asked me how retirement was, because I sold my business last year. And I said, my God, it's the opposite. I've never worked so hard, because the amount of chaos right now is so insane. I just naturally believe that correlates with the amount of opportunity. And so I'm really working hard on a new startup. I'm working hard with my students at Lynn, and I'm working hard to be a good member of the team of the company that acquired us. Because I believe a couple of years from now, we'll be able to look back and see some people that really use this as an opportunity to win. And I'm hoping that we're all in that cohort. So my 2 cents.
And what's better when we're describing resiliency? That's being open and engaged and looking for opportunity. So excellent. Well said.
Well, Stephanie, I'll add one thing, because in my line of work, right, and I classify myself as an entrepreneur, one of the things that really needs to be, that I need to be honest with myself about, is I'm going to fail most of the time. Most of the things I'm going to try to do, most of the ideas that I think are terrific at first, they're going to wind up being wrong. But if I stay at it, chances are I might find something or an idea or make some new relationship that is a win. And so when I think about the characteristic that's helped me be successful, it is that I'm resilient. I have mental toughness associated with accepting my ability to fail often and fail spectacularly, and continue forward, working hard. Winston Churchill once said that success is moving from failure to failure without a loss of enthusiasm. I love that quote.
Yeah.
I want to tattoo it on my chest, right? Because it's how I'm trying to live, and it's the message I'm trying to spread right now.
But John, you and I have to be brothers from another mother somewhere, because I can tell you is that one of my favorite books is by John Maxwell. It's called Failing Forward, and it's an awesome read for you guys that are out there, because this book is about failure being your stepping stones to success, and you do not learn and grow unless you're willing to fail. And so failing forward means is that you're learning to fail in a good way. And as long as you take the lessons from that failure and you apply them to the next thing that you do, then those lessons will be so valuable to you in your future. And don't let them get you down. Get yourself up, dust yourself off, and learn from it, and then move forward is the key.
Amen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other examples? We had talked about TV shows like SNL, Jimmy Fallon doing at-home editions. I mean, I think that's a great example of a resilience during the COVID-19 era.
Yeah, we have a series that we do with Montel Williams, and we literally just switched over to Skype interviews. So it's amazing the amount of engagement we're getting from the Skype interviews. It's almost better than having the people in the studio. So this whole new way of doing things is I think it changes forever. There will be a new normal after this, and the innovation from it will push us forward as well from this adversity.
I see a lot of people on the chat mentioning sports, and another example of that would be the draft. I've never been so engaged watching the draft as I was last week, and it was different. And there, John, going back to your point, there was an opportunity, and they did it well. So we're seeing a lot of that in the media right now in pop culture.
Another example, my brother owns a food market out in Napa Valley with about 50 separate businesses, of which 10 are restaurants. And of course, they're sheltering in place in Napa Valley, so not many people are going to the market right now, and business is really hurting. But they have a huge parking lot, and he said there are not many cars coming to the market, obviously. So as the restrictions start to get lifted, their plan is to turn the parking lot into a giant dining room, basically, to decorate it and make it, almost like a wedding would look like, and then have a place where people can socially distance but eat together. So, again, another example of businesses being resilient, being creative, adapting, using what you have to work with, and going from there.
Lynn has done an excellent job of that. They really have. We went remote immediately and didn't miss a beat. And we have something called #CommonThread. And essentially what it's saying is we're a community, and we're going to get through this together, and we are still going to meet our students' learning objectives, and we are one. So I think a lot of companies are doing this very well.
Yeah, and creatively.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so now it's our last question that we have canned, which is tips to become more resilient. And I think we've certainly talked about the idea of failing forward is one tip, but can we talk a little more about tips for our students or listeners to live by?
Yeah. So you want to start, John, or?
Well, I was just going to thank you for pulling up that Maxwell book. He's one of my favorite all-time authors, and I think a message I would like to give to students today is, humans have been resilient for thousands and thousands of years, and there's no better way to develop yourself personally and professionally than reading those types of books. I love to tell people that you are who your friends are. It was true when I was in second grade, and my mom used to tell me it about who I was hanging around with on the playground. It's more true today in business. And all of the people that I enjoy spending time with and admire personally and professionally are avid readers. And it's something that I didn't really embrace until I was in my 30s. And I feel bad that I missed all those years of self-educating myself. I should have brought a prop today on this topic, because one of the things I do when I'm working with somebody on our team or that I'm friends with that's having a tough time, I give them a copy of the biography of a man named Ernest Shackleton. And Shackleton has a reputation for probably being the most resilient human being in history. If you haven't heard his name, he was an explorer 100 or so years ago that attempted to be the first person to walk to the South Pole. He failed 3 times, and on each of his expeditions brought hundreds of people with him. And one of the reasons that he's developed a legacy on the topic of resiliency is, despite unbelievable, difficult situations, disasters, weather, polar bears, you name it, every single person that went on one of his expeditions came home alive. And it's really required reading if you want to be inspired about what human beings are capable of. I have a little sheet of paper on my computer monitor that I look at every day that reminds me of how I want to live my life. It was a quote I read somewhere from a guy who was a Navy SEAL, and he said, "Courage is contagious." And I find that if you're doing the right things, you're developing yourself, you're saying the right things, boy, the people around you will hear those things and start to emulate. And so courage is contagious, right? Like Nicole said earlier, your effort and your attitude and your energy are the things you can control. So put good versions of it into the world.
Yes.
There you go.
I love that you said that. Hello, I'm back.
Hi,
You're resilient. See that? You got back.
Because I'm resilient, and I never missed a single thing because I called in on my phone while my computer was rebooting.
Okay.
So I heard everything that you said. And I don't know if this is so much of a tip as just a reminder as far as mindset, but I think that one thing that we need to remember is that this era of people, especially, I know some millennials hate to be categorized as millennials because I think it puts you in a bucket, and it's like not every millennial has the exact same characteristics, but just for like age purposes, let's just call it that. The people who are living through COVID-19, who have also lived through 9/11, who have also lived through the housing crisis, who have also seen the effects of the Great Depression through their families, are literally building the strongest resiliency muscles that any generation has seen. So what is my tip to becoming more resilient? My tip is acceptance. Accept where we are at. Accept that there is really not anything that you as an individual can do as far as changing the environment or the economic climate that we're in. But what you can change is, to everyone's point earlier, your attitude. And your attitude is your altitude. It's very much a choice. You can wake up in the morning, and of course, there are going to be things that happen to you. It's how you react to it, right? Like, I'm not saying anything new, but I actually am very averse to lazy people. I am very averse to negative people, and I have cut those energies completely out of my life. And when you can eliminate what is not serving you and have around you only the things that you see eye to eye on, only the things that are going to help build your dreams, only the things that are going to help your resiliency, it'll literally be like you took a boatload of steroids overnight mentally, because you will wake up in the morning and you will be like, I have none of the bull anymore. I have only the good stuff. This is great. And so I guess my tip is that you need to be very aware of what you're choosing and what you're allowing to go into your body and into your mind every single day, and choose wisely.
Yeah.
Excellent points.
Yeah, my tip is along the same lines as what we just heard. I said it earlier, it's that victim mentality, is that, we can never become victims of our situation and circumstances. There's things that happen to us in our life that we had no control over. This is one of them. So we don't have control over the things that happen to us, but we do have control over about how we deal with them and how we respond to them. The things that we're going to do differently from them. What can we learn from that, right? There's an old saying that I quote often here, and that is, for every adversity, there's an equal or greater opportunity. The key to that is not being fixated on the adversity, but being fixated on where's the opportunity in it. And you can't change your past, but you can certainly change your future. And the only way you don't change your future is by living in the past. And so for me and my teams, we constantly focus on whatever this adversity was and what happened to us. How do we actually pivot from that and learn at what are the little seedlings? And we talked about silver linings. Those silver linings are only there when you focus on what can change from this for the better, and not harboring, to Nicole, your point, on that negativity of, oh my goodness, it's over. There's nothing's going to happen. It's always going to be like this. The one thing that is certain is change will happen in our lives. It's absolutely a must, right? We are going to change no matter what. We're going to go through bad times, or we're going to go through good times. The real growth happens in these bad times and these struggles, because we adapt. And we talked about it earlier on this conference. The fact is that my team's adapted, that John's team's adapted, Nicole's team's adapted, Lynn's adapted. We're all adapting. And guess what? When we look past this and we look back 6 or 8 months from now, we're going to say, wow, look at all the wonderful things that are new normals for us because of this situation. And we're going to look back and say, if COVID did not happen, we would have never innovated X or Y, or we might not have started that new business because we would have never gotten laid off. So, for everything that happens to you, there's an opportunity for something great to happen to you from that adversity. And if you just focus on that, then you'll never get stuck, because you'll keep moving forward. That's my.
Right now in our company, because we have less than 15 employees, we have a saying, and our current motto is, we're too small to fail. And what I mean by that is, we are so nimble. We are doing the exact opposite that some of the big corporations are having to do, because we have the flexibility to do that. Instead of letting people go, we actually gave every single person a raise. We are giving them more responsibility because we have the time and the opportunity to go back and look at foundationally some of the steps we may have skipped or may not have given enough attention to. We're going back and we're building a foundation stronger than what we could have ever imagined, because we're revisiting things from 4, 5, 6 years ago that we have the time and the resources to address now. And I'm so excited about this as a silver lining.
That's a great point. What, John, you had spoke about reading more, and I think that's a great tool to use during these times. In fact, I read an article yesterday about resiliency, of course, and one of the things that hasn't been mentioned is about asking for help. I wondered what you guys think about that as a resiliency tip.
I am the asking for help champion of the world.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's not a successful person that I know that doesn't ask for help. The folks that struggle in business are the ones that their ego or their pride, they don't want to be vulnerable. The successful folks out there in their lives and in business are the ones that says, I don't have all the answers. I don't know this. You're smarter than I am in this particular area. And it's that humbleness to ask for help is a key ingredient to being successful. So, I'm going to give John, I'm going to go up against him on the champion of that, because I think all of us here, we would love to have that title. And, one of the things that Nicole said that resonated with me is the mentality of that we're too small to fail. I can tell you for our organization, I have a meeting every year in the beginning of the year with our team. And I tell my team this one mindset that I need them to have, and that is that we are a startup with assets. It doesn't matter how big we are. We have to act like this is a brand new company, and it has some assets, but the most important assets are its people, and it's our ideas, and it's our ability and willingness to go above and beyond what we do just normally, and taking that effort to go that whatever it takes kind of effort. And so if you have that mindset, then you are more like a speedboat than a cruise ship. So you can zig and you can zag, and you can, as waves come, you can avoid them because you're willing to be flexible enough and pliable enough to move around the obstacles that you face. And so I love the idea of that. Hey, we're too small to fail, because we should all be in that mindset no matter what kind of company we have.
Absolutely. And that goes back to positivity, resiliency. What would you tell our students? You're a senior, you were supposed to graduate in a week and a half, and now you are off. What would the big takeaway that you would like to share with our students be in these times?
For me, I would say, first of all, it stinks that you don't get to graduate. I have a daughter that's in high school, that's, a senior, that is not going to be able to walk the stage in the next couple of weeks. And, I'm sad for her for not being able to do that. But I do believe that even though, you're not getting the normal scenario of your graduating year, you're in an opportunity today to where, because of the education that you have gotten, that is, I'm going to call it, one thing I love about Lynn is it's a progressive and it's a technologically advanced kind of mindset, is why I'm excited to be partnering with Lynn in an internship program, because it's thinking futuristically and being innovative. I have a big saying that you either innovate or you die, and your competitive advantage that you have as a business is not whatever your competitive advantage is today will become your competitive liability in the future. But it's that. So I'd say for all you graduating seniors that are out there, is that you have tremendous opportunity, especially in a down market like this, to make your footprint and take advantage of what is out there for you. Is not all the things that you're losing. Focus on the things that you're going to be able to gain through this experience that will last with you for a lifetime.
Great. Thank you.
I love that. And I would say that one thing that you could be really focused on right now is connecting with people, connecting with ideas. I feel personally in my life right now, I am more connected to my community and to my industry, being stuck inside my home for 50 days, more connected than I ever have been, because everyone else is doing the same thing. And so I would say to students who are feeling a little bit down or lost, like you lost out on that experience. Hey, I remember when I graduated, what I remember about it is standing outside with a full face of makeup and my hair done and dripping sweat from every orifice of my body. So that's one positive. You won't be experiencing that. I'm just joking, of course. I'm not making light of the fact that you won't have a ceremony. However,
they will be getting it. It's just the timing of things. So it's important.
So they'll still have that experience and that memory. But what they can be doing right now is connecting. And I don't just mean like reaching out and sending a text. I mean truly getting in there, calling people, call your mentors. If you don't have a mentor, pick a mentor and get a mentor. Pick one right now. Ask them what they need help with. Ask them what you can do. There are plenty of businesses around here that can give you a job while being safe, socially distanced, and they will welcome your help. And you will learn something in the process. Is it going to be your like dream work and your career? I don't know, maybe not, but will you be doing something productive and learning? Yes, 100% you will. Because you're either going to what? You're going to win or you're going to learn. Either way you win. Connect with people.
Great advice.
I'll add something here. And I'm glad I had a few minutes to think about it, Mark and Nicole. Thanks for responding first. When I think about young people, recent college graduates, college seniors, people of that age group that I've met with in a professional setting over the past 10 years or so, either because they were, an intern, wanted to be an intern, were looking for their first career position. The ones that have impressed me the most are the ones that have a perspective about what will make them successful, what will make them happy, how they want to contribute. They might not be able to apply those thoughts directly to what they'll do for our business, But when they've clearly spent the time thinking about it, it's always a more interesting conversation. And for me, the more interesting the conversation, the more interested I am in finding a way to help them join our business, be successful, understand our culture, whatever. And so one of the things we have more of right now is time for reflection. And so I would be thinking about, this is going to end. We're going to be back out there doing work, connecting with each other, in person. I would prepare to talk to hiring managers or others about what's important to you, what you'd like to accomplish in your career, what kind of team you'd like to be a part of. And there's no wrong answers. What I'm most interested in is that you have a perspective and that you're able to articulate and demonstrate to me that you've made the effort to ask for an opportunity. And if you take the time to do that, I will absolutely make the time to try to help you. So that's how I think about how to make something positive out of a really shitty situation right now.
Yeah, I'd like to add something to that too, John, is that, we've been in discussions with a company this week. It's a new kind of resume company. I think the company's called Job Board. And what they've done is they really focused on creating a 3D kind of resume. So I'm talking to the seniors here, is that it allows you to actually express yourself in a way in your resume that's not just on a piece of paper, but it allows you to actually put video up and tell your story. And to John's point is that people who are willing to tell their story and share information about themselves in a different way, it's differentiation. It actually works, right? There's a book that I'm the book quoter because I read a ton of books on business. It's an oldie but goldie. It's called Purple Cow by Seth Godin, and it's all about if you saw a purple cow, it would cause you to stop and have to get out of your car and take a picture of it if it was on the side of the road. So what makes you different than everybody else? And a lot of times is that difference never gets communicated out there in the world. So people don't know that you're any different than the other cows, so to speak. And the fact is that if you can get a chance to take an opportunity as a graduating senior to, okay, what would you say to somebody that was looking to hire you? What would you say that's different? And go fill out a resume that is 3D and that expresses who you are. Talk about what you want. To what John spoke to is that, what are your desires? When I interview folks for a position here, I say to them this question. I said, if I gave you a blank piece of paper, on the left side of the piece of paper, you could write down all the things that you would love to do in a way that you can't believe that you're actually getting paid to do them. What would those things be? And then on the right side of the piece of paper, write down the things that you could probably even be very good at, but they take a lot of emotional energy for you, and you don't really like to do them, but you do them because you have to, or you think you have to. And then when you go out to look for a job, try and find as many things on that one side of the list that you can say to yourself when you wake up every morning, I can't believe I'm getting paid to do these things, because out of those 10 things, 8 of those are on the list of my job. And you'll get what you want to get as long as you're willing to put in the effort that most people aren't willing to put in, and position yourself differently than most people. The adage I say is that if you want what most people have, then do what most people do. But if you want what most people don't get the privilege to have, then do the things that most people aren't willing to do, and you'll be successful in that.
Perfect.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
Stephanie, real quick, 1 second, just for fun and to make this actually worthwhile. I don't know if you're looking at the chat window here, but there's a girl named Sarah McManus that's hitting you up for a job opportunity, man. I think you need to respond to her right now. Make this a success.
Sarah, I'm going to send you my email address so that you can get connected with me, because exactly what we're looking for. Let's waste no time. When can you start? So I will be sending.
That's a man of action right there.
Great example.
I'm going to send you my email address so you can reach out to me, and I will get you connected with our HR team ASAP. But thanks, John. I appreciate that. Great recruit.
Sarah's a great student.
All right, awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for all of your advice. Gary, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I think we've covered everything I had on my list, and I learned a lot from being here. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to be with us at Lynn today, and all of our students and faculty members that joined us today. Thank you for great questions.
Yes, thank you all so much again. Absolutely wonderful. Our panelists, again, we can't thank you enough. Lynn University, our faculty, our students, and of course, Barb Cambia and everybody in Career Connections. We really appreciate it all.
And I don't know if you've been following the chat here, but the audience is very, very appreciative and lots of great comments coming through the chat box. Yeah. Thanking you for your wisdom, advice, great webinar, et cetera, et cetera. So.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
We're excited to share with these students. They're awesome. So.
Thank you all again.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Be good, everybody. Stay safe and healthy.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.